Hey everybody. So, one fun fact about me is that I love the Twilight Zone and think it's really great. And because of that, I just thought it might be fun to make a little video where I talk about some episodes of this show that I think are good, or interesting, or just thought-provoking. I don't have much of an intro here. This is Twilight Zone Hot Takes video. So, get ready for some T-Zone H-Takes. Hope you enjoy! Hot take number 1. The first episode I want to talk about is one of the most famous in Twilight Zone history, Eye of the Beholder. I think most people know this one. A woman is covered in bandages, getting medical therapies to help cure her ugliness. She lives under an authoritarian state where conformity of appearance is mandated, and if this round of treatment doesn't work, she'll be sent away to live with the other Uggos.
Well, one of the alternatives. Just in the event that this last treatment is not successful, this is simply to allow you to move into a special area in which people of your kind have been congregated.
The episode culminates with what must be the most iconic Twilight Zone twist ever. As the doctor removes the bandages on the lady to see if her treatment worked, the camera reveals, holy cow, she's a sexy lady, not deformed at all. And these doctors and nurses, they're the ugly ones. So, the twist here gets at the primary thesis of the episode. Said by Rod Serling himself, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. With this moment, we're presented with the very visceral realization that there can be no objective standard concerning which people are and aren't acceptable. What this alien society thinks of as beautiful clearly isn't some function of platonic beauty, but just the impact of socialization, power, and genetics. And because of that, the authoritarian regime forcing these non-conforming people out is making a grave, immoral mistake. They fail to understand the importance of subjectivity.
The state isn't God, Doctor.
Miss Tyler, please.
The state is not God!
So, cool. That's pretty fun and simple and punchy, right? Authoritarianism bad, liberty good. I agree. But none of that is actually what I want to talk about today. Because buried in this episode, hidden by the big reveal that the ugly lady was hot all along, is a second twist. One that I think is way more interesting. See, after the doctor takes off the woman's bandages and reveals that their treatment didn't work, the main character starts running from them, desperate to avoid her ghettoization. Inevitably, though, she finds herself running into the hands of the person there to take her away.
Mr. Smith is in charge of the village group in the north. He'll take you there tonight.
But, strangely, he's not mean to her. And, at least to our eyes, he's good-looking. And he doesn't speak of where they're going in a negative light at all. Rather, he frames it as a space of belonging and love.
I think you're gonna like it where I'm gonna take you. You'll be with your own kind. And in a little while, well, you'll be amazed how little a while. You'll feel a sense of great belonging. You'll feel a sense of being loved.
And as the woman and man walk away, going to a place where they can actually be happy, we can't follow them. Instead, we're left with the disgusting faces of sad people just gazing at us. I think there's a lot of ways to read their expression here. Maybe they're upset to see the nice lady consigned to a fate of isolation. Maybe we're just seeing them now to drive the point home. Wow, these people sure are ugly. But I choose to read it as a moment of longing. These exiled characters are going to be accepted by a community unconditionally. And no matter what, these characters will never experience that. Their presence in this society is, at every moment, contingent on their conformity. And when all the deviants are taken away, all we have is them. these half-accepted people waiting to become the monsters they just got rid of. And I know, on some level, that this isn't exactly true to life. To be othered by an authoritarian regime usually doesn't mean you're going to a community of joy and love. But what a great twist, you know? What a thing to think about. It's a good episode. Hoo-wee, glad that's done, 'cause now we can get on to hot take number 2. So, there's not a lot of things that are more important to the Twilight Zone than the idea of getting what you deserve. The show places a near-constant emphasis on doling out rough poetic justice, on seeing its characters punished in ways that feel appropriate. A character wants to terrorize a society of small people so he can make himself feel powerful? Well, he gets to be crushed by a giant.
I'm the god, don't you understand? I'm the god!
A conspiracy theorist constantly treats people like they're unworthy, wants to make them small? Well, he gets to be transformed into a small man himself. A guy gambles? Well, he gets to be chased down by a slot machine. And while it's true that this gesture of the Twilight Zone, this notion that characters should always get the horrific nightmares they deserve, often feels vindictive and a bit over the top, there is always an idea that the show expresses through it. You shouldn't be power hungry or exploit vulnerable people to satisfy your ego. You shouldn't allow paranoia about anti-American insurgents to allow you to become a monster. You shouldn't gamble. Within the Twilight Zone, the comeuppance these characters face at the ends of their episodes is morality, justice, and the manner in which that justice is exacted tells us the underlying message of the work. Okay, with that in mind, I want to talk about another iconic episode of this show, called The Masks. It's about an old man who invites his family over to his house on the day before he dies. As it turns out, his family is filled with terrible people. His hypochondriac daughter, her shallow businessman husband, his vain granddaughter, and her sociopathic brother.
Oh, perhaps not the same degree of excitement that you get from torturing small animals, as I've seen you do in the past.
Lay off, grandfather.
And because they're all so awful, the old man decides that on his last day on Earth, he'll reveal them to be the monsters that they are by forcing them to wear masks which bring out their inner essence.
At long last, he's dead.
Good.
Now, let's celebrate. What's the matter? What's the matter with you all?
So, on first blush, this episode appears to fall in line with the ideas I was talking about before. At the end of this episode, these characters are permanently punished for concealing their vain, selfish, malignant ways. The message is clear. It's bad to do what these people do. It's something that's worthy of punishment. But now, I want to ask a question that I always think about when I watch this episode. Why doesn't this old man get punished? Like, throughout the episode, Oldie is shown to be this kind, virtuous, ethical figure. At the end, a doctor takes off his mask and reveals an unchanged, peaceful face.
This must be death. No horror, no fear. Nothing but peace.
And we can only get one idea from that. Old man is good and honest, family is bad and phony. But that's not the case at all, is it? I mean, this is a guy who spends his final hours of his life deforming his family.
Oh, this is horrible, Father. I'm suffocating.
That's really bad, I think. And it's not like he tells them that's gonna happen. You know, you can have my money if you're willing to have your faces ruined. No, he lies to them. He's duplicitous and phony about his intentions. So I ask again, why isn't he punished? Well, I think the answer is pretty intuitive, right? The old man isn't punished because he's the one giving people what they deserve. And that action, by the show's logic, is always an unquestioned good. I find this episode really telling of the Twilight Zone as a whole. Because, it's really easy to watch all these characters in the show get punished, and to think that those punishments are there to be instructive, that they convey some greater message. But in this episode, that idea is proven to be incomplete. The Masks is not just about the badness of being inauthentic or vain or whatever. It's also about celebrating and fetishizing the idea of just violence. The man who is willing to perform evil acts so as to reveal and destroy evil. And maybe, on some level, that's what all these other episodes are about too. I don't know, it's something to think about. But enough about Masks. Let's move the hot take train on to the next station with hot take number 3. So, one of my favorite episodes of The Twilight Zone is called Come Wander With Me. Loosely speaking, it's about an up-and-coming musician, Floyd Burney, who comes to a small rural town in search of a folk song to record and sell. What he finds is a woman, Mary Rachel, who begrudgingly sings him this really hauntingly beautiful song.
He said, "Come wander with me, love. Come wander with me."
But as it turns out, through an unclear mechanism, Floyd becomes an unwilling participant in the story the song tells. And in the end, the song is about him finding a woman he loves but who is engaged to someone else, killing the man she was engaged to, Billy Rayford.
You killed Billy Rayford, bespoke unto me, struck him down in his anger, 'neath an old willow tree.
And eventually being killed himself. This episode is weird, really weird. And even thinking about it now, I'm not even entirely sure what to make of it. But I will make one sort of tentative suggestion, that Come Wander With Me is something of a meditation on what it means to own things. We can start to see this idea come up at the start of the episode, where Floyd Burney pesters a store owner, trying to buy his music from him.
I pay cash. On the line. Now.
No. Nobody comes here. I ain't got nothing they would want.
Here, we're presented with a sort of paradoxical question. How can a person buy and come to own something which has no value? Burney tells the store owner multiple times that whatever folk music his society generates, that doesn't belong to him. It's PD, public domain.
Now anything you got is only PD. You know, public domain. I'm trying to tell you is, Dad, that you ain't got no rights, catch?
And as such, the act of purchasing these songs isn't presented as an exchange so much as a parasitic act. The outsider businessman who seeks to take the product of a culture, reinterpret it as a resource, and put it on the market to benefit himself. And this depiction of the strained conditions of ownership is revisited again and again in the episode. When Burney first meets Mary Rachel, she tells him that she can't record her song for him because it belongs to someone else.
That song is secret. It belongs to somebody.
It can't belong to anybody. Nobody can buy it. It's public domain.
Presumably, she's referring to Billy Rayford, the man who she's unhappily engaged to, and who in some sense comes to own and dominate her. But about a minute after that, she does sing the song for Burney, though she gives no reason for doing so. And later on, the notion that the song is owned by Rayford is just sort of thrown away. It's replaced with another idea, that the song does belong to Mary Rachel and to Burney, and that in fact, they somehow belong to the song.
Stop it! Stop it! You hear me? I don't want to hear anymore!
But it's our song. It belongs to us and we belong to it.
And this thematic arc comes to its head in the final scene, where Burney is killed. Now, we would normally think an episode like this would end with a return to the song, right? It is the centerpiece of the story, after all, so it only makes sense for things to conclude with a verse describing Bernie, the Wanderer's, death. But that's not what happens. Rather, in his final moments alive, we see Bernie surrounded by a wall of noise coming from instruments he cannot control. And it might be kind of reaching, but I take this moment as a suggestion that now it's us, the audience, who can't own this song. We want to hear the rest. We want to have our clean ending, but such an event will never occur. The song is forever incomplete. Are you confused right now? 'Cause so am I. I'm not sure if there is some big, profound message that this episode is conveying. I can't really say what it says about owning stuff. Just that that idea is really fundamental to what's going on here in some way. And maybe that strange lack of clarity is the point. I don't know. This was the last episode ever recorded of The Twilight Zone. We can see it as something of a finale, and I think about that a lot. After a full show of these high-concept episodes with clear, stated messages, we're left with this confusing, messy, thought-provoking thing. I just think that's so cool for some reason. Hot take number 4. Sounds and Silences, Season 5, Episode 27.
Damn the torpedoes of competition! And full speed ahead!
This guy's too loud. Quiet down, loudmouth. Also, let's make fun of you because you were in World War II and you're loud about it.
Do you know what that is, madam? Collector's item. The actual sounds of the battleship Missouri bombarding Okinawa.
And also, when you talk to your wife about how your mother was abusive.
And when I would come home from school, she would make me walk tiptoe and whisper, 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 whisper.
She should, dunk on you because you're so loud and no one likes you.
I respond, Mr. Roswell G. Flemington, with the following nautical phrase, which I have now taken to heart and will proceed to implement. The phrase is, lay aft and dump the garbage. So, in a manner of speaking, consider yourself dumped!
And at the end, let's punish you by making you deaf because that's what you deserve, loudo. This episode is so bad and silly and just mean. I'm not even entirely sure what they're going for here. Were there more loud people in the 1960s who just needed a savage takedown? I don't get it, and that's my hot take. The final hot take. Sounds and Silences. So that's my Twilight Zone hot takes video. I really hope you liked that one, because it was super fun and exciting to make. And I just love the Twilight Zone a lot, and I'm hoping that some of you will watch a few episodes because of the inspiration that I provided. Now it's time for my Patreon question of the video. Stephanie FFS asks, are you Canadian? Or, sometimes it sounds like you have an accent, and I want to know its origin, but not in a weird way. Also, it's okay that people say you look like Frodo. I have a cat named Frodo. Frodo is a good boy. Yeah, I don't take offense when people say I look like Frodo. I personally think that Elijah Wood is a very a strapping young gentleman, and I don't mind it at all. Continue to do so in the comments to your heart's pleasure. Anyway, I'm not Canadian, actually. I'm from the New York area. I do have a slightly interesting voice, I guess, and I'm starting to discover that my accent is a little bit more specific to my region than I thought it was. For instance, sometimes I pronounce words like talk, or walk, and that's something that I didn't know that I did, but is true because I live in New York, the New York area. So, okay, that's the answer to your question. Thank you to all my patrons. Like, comment, and subscribe if you thought this was a good video. And go ahead and give me money if you